Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining me. I'm Tim Laskus, and you're listening to The Tim Laskus Show, episode 62. How many of you out there are using a website and you're just not getting those Google ranking results that you've been looking for? Well, I've got the answer. Longtail Pro. Man, Longtail Pro will give you all those great, juicy keywords that's going to help zip you right up to the top of Google, and it's the way to go. Man, they offer an affordable plan starting only $25 a month, and you'll get about 10,000 keyword searches just for $25 a month. That's incredible. And this is a must-have service for anybody who's into SEO and internet marketer. Give them a test drive. They'll get a free 7-day trial. So if you go to timlaskus.com/resources, click on Longtail Pro and get that discount. Get in there. Can't go wrong. Also, another wonderful, wonderful resource for all of you today is Design Crowd. If you're looking for a new logo, custom logo for your business cards, for your website, for a banner, a book cover, anything that you're doing, Design Crowd is the answer. So if you head on over to timlaskus.com/resources, click on Design Crowd and get your discount rate so that you can get that super cool new logo and everyone can say, yeah, you look awesome, you look cool, you look professional. Design Crowd is the way to go. Head on over to timlaskus.com/resources. Now, on to today's featured guest, who is Chelsea Fournier. Hope I got that right. And Chelsea offers a coaching program for entrepreneurs who help them clarify their ambition, take action, and step on out into higher level of visibility for success. Now, she started out as an attorney. However, she quickly found out she was in the wrong profession. She literally found herself on the floor, knocked out. No, she wasn't knocked out, but she was having a panic attack, and she was super, super stressed. And she said, I got to change. I got to do something different. And she tells the story of how she just turned things around, and now she helps entrepreneurs kickstart their career, get them escalated up to the success that they want and deserve. So sit back, get ready, enjoy a cool episode.
The Tim Laskus Show, in search of entrepreneurial gold. Tim digs deep into the minds of his guests, entertaining, down to earth, and informative. Now, here's your host, Tim Laskus.
Welcome, listeners. Today's featured guest is Chelsea Fournier. Did I pronounce that right?
It's Fournier, but I take
Fournier.
Sure.
Chelsea, thanks for being on the show. I totally messed up your name.
Oh, thanks for having me, Tim. I'm excited.
Yeah. Hey, you were saying that you listen to Willie Nelson on the road again because you're traveling so much.
I do.
Is that true?
I do. I love to travel. I feel like, I like having a home base, but there's such a big world out there. And I spent so much of my 20s sitting at a desk that I have embraced my 30s as moving around and meeting new people and enjoying new cultures. So On the Road Again is a good theme song for me.
So what's your best, kind of most memorable moment of travel? Like, where did you go and you just went, oh, I cannot leave. I want to stay here forever.
Well, Tim, you're going to think that I'm kind of mimicking you, but actually it was Costa Rica.
Really? What part of Costa Rica?
Yeah, I went to Guanacaste area maybe 6 years ago and fell in love with it. Just being down right on the water. It was basically a 1-week trip to get away, and rented something on Airbnb or one of those sites and just fell in love with the people and the pace and the weather. So it's definitely somewhere I could live long term.
Oh, for sure. Did you go to Tamarindo? That's my favorite little spot there in Guanacaste.
Yep, we did.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then you got to watch out for the iguanas. They get pretty big and they'll chase you around.
They do. We actually had the great fortune of having the people that we were staying with were friends with someone who does tour guides through the jungle. And we had an amazing trip going through the jungle. He was just, pulling off fruits for us to try, showing us the animals. It was just such an amazing experience. I would go back and do it 1,000 times over.
Oh yeah, yeah. We try to go once or twice a year, and we've actually been spending more time in Nicaragua, just north of the border, and right in San Juan del Sur, and
Mhm.
that's my little spot. It's not overrun with tourists, and it's a really
Mm,
really nice area. So,
nice.
well, yeah, definitely for sure. I can relate of not wanting to leave and always enjoy our stay. But
Absolutely.
anyway, tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, Chelsea, and what are you currently working on?
Yeah, I am a bit of an anomaly in that my background is as a corporate and intellectual property attorney, which is where my 20s were spent at a desk. But I started to realize that I wanted to add value in more ways than just working with one client at a time. And also that, I grew up as a ballet dancer. I was moving all the time and just, I don't know why I thought sitting at a desk was going to be a good 40-year career choice for me. So I decided to explore other options and really have been a bit of a mutt in business over the past 5 years of exploring, how can I take my skill sets of working with startups, working with entrepreneurs, and really help people cut their learning curve because I'm passionate about helping people reach their potential and really defining what that is. So, really, a fairly kind of new iteration of how I'm really trying to bring value to the world and connect with new audiences is getting back to my roots of business coaching. So, working with startups in a more kind of hands on way, and also have gotten into network marketing and help people launch home based businesses. So, I'm talking to people about business all day, every day, and trying to help them be more successful and cut their learning curve.
Well, that's awesome. And with your coaching practice and working with people, what's kind of maybe a theme that you see that people are coming to you with as far as a problem area, and how are you helping them?
Yeah, I see two big areas, probably more, but the two that I've been seeing recently where entrepreneurs that have tons of promise tend to get hung up is either around the mindset issues of being an entrepreneur, of really having, a clear vision of where you want to go because you don't have a boss, you don't have a job description. It's a very different experience. And especially if someone has been an employee and then become an entrepreneur, that's a pretty hard transition to step into the right mindset, to set positive behaviors and habits to have long-term, like sustainable success. And the other category is really visibility. Super impressed looking at your website and seeing that you're getting into social media and podcasting and YouTube. There's so many ways to raise visibility these days that I almost feel like entrepreneurs are overwhelmed and don't know where to start. And so I would say like clarity of vision and those mindset habits, and then making sure visibility, people know what you're doing is so huge. So I really like to help people work on the strategy around those two areas because if they have a great product or service, but no one knows about it, or they don't know where they want to be in their business 5 months from now, 6 months from now, I feel like that's where a lot of people get hung up.
Well, great areas of focus because certainly there were a lot of people who were kind of drawn to entrepreneurship and wanting to work for themselves and tell their boss to go kiss off
Mm,
and see you later,
right.
adios, I'm out of here. But,
Right.
some people just aren't wired initially for, what it's going to be like because you're the one that has to tell yourself, to get up early or go to bed late and not to watch those great TV programs and instead work on your stuff. There's lots of long hours and kind of self-discipline that's involved that some people just really struggle with. So it sounds like you really help them kind of tackle that area and give them the best chance for success.
I really try to, because something that I'll be really honest, something that really frustrates me out in the marketing world and industry right now is all of these stories of overnight successes. And I don't know if you agree with me, Tim, but there's very rarely an actual overnight success. you know,
100%, unless they won the lottery, but
exactly. Exactly.
other than that, no. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just kind of like smoke and mirrors. Everybody thinks, "Wow, look at this person! They're so lucky. They,
Hmm.
automatically snap their fingers, and the Lamborghinis and the big homes and the money and the jets and all that stuff just popped out of nowhere." And it's so not like that at all.
Yeah. It's worth it, but it's not like that.
Yes, absolutely. And then you talked about visibility and on social media, and I was really late to the game, and I had jumped on many years ago, and then I was like, this is just not for me. I'm
Mhm.
I'm I'm not a real kind of out there, put my stuff out there, and I just totally got off and had nothing to do with posting anywhere. I didn't have an Instagram account. All I had was a Facebook, which I had created years ago and had it for a little while, and then just didn't do anything with it. And then until more recently, that I really saw the power of that, and I had to really get over my own kind of mental roadblocks of having to do this, and I've actually found it rather enjoyable instead of kind of miserable, which kept me from going there in the first place.
Sure. I hear you, because I am actually an introvert. I am an introvert entrepreneur, and getting out there with higher visibility, I know, is what I need to do to help more people, but it's certainly way outside of my comfort zone. So whether it's, being nervous about it because it's new, or feeling like it isn't in alignment with your personality, like I totally get the resistance to it, but it is so powerful, and you just can't ignore that because of social media. Literally, we're in like the greatest entrepreneurial boom of, humankind, it seems, just because you can literally with a smartphone run a media company. Like everything that you're doing, I'm sure, can be done remotely. It's super impressive. And, for people that want that flexibility, or to be successful as an entrepreneur, or that, quote unquote, digital nomad lifestyle, you got to embrace it and learn it. That's really what I've been doing for the past year. And it's been really fun, just kind of embracing it.
Yeah, you have to. And getting back to, you talked about being an introvert, and I'm more of an introvert as well. And I think some people use that as an excuse of not to put themselves out there, and as an excuse not to be successful. And they're like, well, I just don't want to deal with people, and I like just my own time and stuff. And that's fine. And it's all about recharging your batteries. And introverts, they can go out and have the people skills to network and to be around others and give presentations and talks and workshops and coach and all that good stuff. But when the day is done, we like to go and just chill alone and get away from everything, turn everything off, don't be bothered. And for me, it's about a half hour, 45 minutes every day that I need to kind of decompress, recharge my batteries, and then I'm ready to go again. But for extroverts, for them, it's like, well, they've had a long day being around people, and then the way they recharge is they'll go out with a bunch of big group of friends at night, and they're like, yes, that's what I needed. But not for me. It just further drains me. And so it's all about just learning the tips and strategies to be able to go out and do it. And then also, how do you recharge yourself? So I'm guessing, Chelsea, you recharge yourself by having that kind of alone time.
I do. Yeah. And I love that you obviously have the psychology background. So you get the difference between introvert and extrovert, because so many people think about it as being friendly or unfriendly, or well-spoken or stumbling. And it has nothing to do with that. You're so right that it's around energy. It's around what your strengths are. And I think being an introvert as an entrepreneur is a bit of a superhero power, because it forces me to be really methodical, and to, think about how I'm screening my time and managing my time and planning out my calendar, so that if I have a really big, presentation to give, that the next day, exactly like you said, I'm actually scheduling in extra meditation time, or going to a float tank, or, just taking care of myself, because that creative flow will get stuck, and I get super grumpy if I'm jumping from one big high energy thing to the next. Whereas, I come from a family with a couple significant extroverts, and you're right, they're like looking for the after party just to keep talking to people because it feeds their energy. It's so confusing to me, because that, I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go home and pet my cat and read a book. But it's good to know each other, especially in a family or in a partnership, to make sure, that it's not about being weak. It's just about like, okay, this is how I need to prepare to be out there and crushing it again, and not plowing through it.
Well, a great strategy to build it into your schedule for sure. And you'd mentioned something about a float tank. What is a float tank?
Oh, yeah. So a float tank, Tom Brady actually uses one, so it's becoming a little bit more popular. But my sister owns a wellness center and is one of only 2 places in the state of Maine, which is where I am, that have float tanks. And they look like you're stepping into a little bit of a spaceship. But there's, I'm sure, a much more eloquent way of describing it. But within this tank, there's about 4 to 5 inches of water with an insane amount of Epsom salts and salts that have been dissolved into it, so that you can't help but float. And once you close the tank around yourself, it is basically like a sensory deprivation experience, so that you can't feel the water really, because you're floating so much. Your skin is absorbing really great nutrients and salts and magnesium, and you can just shut your brain off because you can't see anything. It's dark. You can't hear anything. So it's a really, really cool experience. And it's, I think, great for introvert entrepreneurs to do that every once in a while, just to completely unplug. If you haven't tried it, you totally should.
Well, it sounds like it probably forces you to relax because if you have, claustrophobia or, closed spaces or being in a dark kind of tight environment, you might start to freak out. So it probably forces you to relax your mind and utilize some deep breathing or whatever it might be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's awesome. Well, since we're talking about strategies, can you provide a couple of tips for some entrepreneurs who are in the kind of the very beginning stages or even entrepreneurs who are getting ready to kind of take that leap?
Absolutely. And my first tip almost might seem counterintuitive because especially when you use that word leap, it's like a very active word. You just want to jump into action as an entrepreneur. But one of my tips is actually to slow down so that you go in the right direction. And so I work a lot with entrepreneurs around figuring out what is their vision and even crafting a vision statement that they can say every single day. Because what I found when I, kind of jumped out of the corporate America ladder in the law practice and started working for myself, I kept doubting myself of like, am I making the right decision? Is this the right way to use my time? Is this the right resource? And what I started to realize is I was only doubting my decisions because I wasn't laser focused and clear on where I was trying to go. I was using very vague terms of like, well, I want to make more money. I want to have better clients. I want, just very not specific goals. And once I started to really think about the vision of what I was trying to create and sharing that vision and making decisions based on whether they got me further towards the vision or whether they were a distraction, things just started to fall into place. So I think sometimes entrepreneurs, we're creative people, we're out there, shaking hands, kissing babies, making things happen. But when it comes down to it, you've got to be working towards something. And so slowing down to be able to go fast in the right direction is a really important practice as an entrepreneur, whether you build it into, your own schedule on a quarterly basis, whether you work with a business coach, whether you, have a vision statement and a morning practice, really staying attached to where you're going, because otherwise, it's kind of like that Alice in Wonderland quote of the Cheshire Cat, asking, where do you want to go? And Alice in Wonderland, or Alice saying, I'm not sure. Well, then it really doesn't matter which direction you take. So really laser focus practice around what you want to see happen in your life and your business before you even start taking action, because then you're going to be more intentional and get better results, probably out of less. I'm a big fan of work smarter, not harder, and having that vision is really an amazing way to have a much more efficient path forward.
Yeah, and it's so important for big corporations to have that vision, that clear vision, that vision statement. And so it makes sense that entrepreneurs, because, although you're not a big Fortune 500 company, not yet, but, you're starting out. And so you also need to be very clear. And this is something that my brother and I had this conversation the other day, and he feels like he's just, he knows he kind of wants to do something, but he keeps getting pulled in different directions. And so he just needs to kind of get quiet and get clear on what that kind of mission is and where he wants to go. And so that's so important. That's excellent. So what other tip do you have?
I would say another one, because being an entrepreneur can feel like a silo, of you're just in your head, you're, maybe if you're a laptop entrepreneur, you're in your home office or whatnot, is to force yourself to connect with people. People who have a similar scale of vision, because you are the average of the 5 people that you surround yourself with. And that could be listening to a podcast and having someone, speaking into your ear as you commute that, it's okay to have a bigger vision. But, for example, I just had coffee with an amazing entrepreneur in my hometown. We don't really have a specific way that we can collaborate or support one another, but every couple months we get together just to brainstorm, share ideas, because you don't have that water cooler talk like you do in a more corporate setting. And you don't always have peers that understand what you're doing, because a lot of entrepreneurs are doing really innovative things. And so to sit down with your friend who's still working a 9 to 5 and share your vision is very almost deflating, because they just don't get what you're doing, or it takes too long to explain. So intentionally put in your schedule a couple times a month to get together with someone who's just following their passion, swap ideas without an agenda. My 2016, actually, New Year's resolution was to meet with at least 3 people a month with no agenda. And I met amazing people. Because it was just sitting down to swap ideas, share our vision. Sometimes there was a way to work with each other. Sometimes there wasn't, but we just got to meet someone cool and learn, kind of learn new ideas. And I don't necessarily have the time to do that ongoing still of 3 times a month, but really meeting up with people who can share your level of vision is so important so that you don't start to play smaller just because people don't get what you're doing.
Yeah, that is excellent. As you're talking, I'm thinking about like floating in the ocean and entrepreneurs being in these individual little enclosed pods, and we're all just kind of floating in the ocean, and we may be close to each other or maybe far, but we're all kind of isolated, and it just at times it feels alone. It feels like, no one understands in our family, or we may not have friends who are initially kind of understand what we're doing or who are as motivated. Many of them may be just like, well, go get a job and suck it up. What's this entrepreneurial thing? And so to be around like-minded people, whether you can, network and help each other, but sometimes it's just good just to talk and kind of get it out of what your day's like and have someone who understands what you're going through. And that in itself is such a great benefit. So, when did you realize that, you wanted to be an entrepreneur? Because it sounded like you had jumped into the corporate world and then shifted and made a transition.
I did. And in case my story can help any of your listeners to know that they're not alone, if it's okay with you, I'll be pretty honest that I was practicing law. So I graduated college in only 3.5 years. I was probably the youngest lawyer in the state of Maine when I was sworn in. I went right through to law school, and I was I would say still am, really good at academics. So I was top of my class and got a job offer at a big law firm. And you don't say no to that, right? It's what you should, quote unquote, do.
Yeah.
And so I got onto this path of, all of a sudden waking up and realizing I was in a job at a big law firm. And not that they were a bad employer, not that there was, unreasonable amount of pressure or stress. It was just a very bad fit for me. And I had a lot of emotions of guilt, actually, of being like, I've got this great paying job. I own a condo. Like, I'm doing all the things you should be doing. So why am I so unhappy? And it actually started causing significant health problems. I was having anxiety attacks. And I don't know about you, but I don't think it's that normal at 28 to be waking up and having anxiety attacks to the point of not being able to breathe and then putting on my suit and a smile to go have my day. Like, that just didn't seem normal to me.
Yeah.
And I started to realize, and now, as you look back, the dots start to connect. But I realized that, I really grew up in a very creative environment. I was dancing 15 to 20 hours a week in high school. I, had that artistic expression, but just because I was also good at academics, went on this more academic track that led to a profession that, while I truly believe I'm very, when I'm working with legal clients, I offer really great value. I'm very detail oriented. People get really good experiences working with me, but I knew that couldn't be the only way that I could make a living and make an impact on the world. And so, I can remember a specific anxiety attack morning. I kind of laugh about it now, but at the time it was very scary. And I remember making a decision that day that this cannot be it. And whether it's going to be messy or pretty, like, I've got to start unraveling some of these things that I set up for myself that outside looking in looked really successful and great, but for me, it was just not the right fit. And so started to really come to terms with the fact that I am a bit more of a creative, and that entrepreneurial spirit in me was just not going to be okay sitting at a desk billing my life away in 6-minute increments, for the foreseeable future. And a lot of people thought, and probably still think maybe, that I'm a little bit crazy to walk away from, a really successful career. But I like using those skills in different ways. And so I think, being an entrepreneur or making a significant change is almost the scarier thing, because so many more people will just settle and say, oh, this is fine. Maybe I'm just stressed. Maybe I need a massage type thing, to just put a Band-Aid over that lack of resonance, but I was just not okay with it. And so over the past 5 years, I've been unraveling and being really intentional with my decisions now and making sure that I'm not committing to something before testing it out and making sure that it really does move me towards the vision of the life and career that I want. So, I guess over the past 5 to 6 years, long story short, of coming back to terms with who I am and what it is I want to offer to the world.
Wow, what a very fascinating story. So it sounds like the kind of the idea that societal push. Well, you're good in academics, you go to school, go get a good job, and all of that was kind of leading you in that direction. But yet you had this, you were started paying attention to physiologically and mentally. Your health was being negatively impacted, and so for you to kind of wake up and go, wow, this is not what I want. This is not working out. I need to pay attention to what's going on with me. And that would have been more crazy in reality than just kind of sucking it up and going with it. Mm-hmm. On the outside looking in, it's like, yeah, what's wrong with you? You got this, great job. You went to school, you became an attorney and all this. And so to give that up, to walk away, and some people just may not be able to understand it, who are kind of don't have that entrepreneurial kind of mindset at all. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the real crazy thing is for you to continue to do that and go and wake up one day at 40, 50, 60 and go, well, what the hell just happened all these years? I'm on all this medication. I've been hospitalized 3 or 4 times. That would have been the insane thing to do. So what such a fascinating story and for you to kind of take note and go, wow, this isn't working. Well, Chelsea, let's kind of go into the dig round, and I'm going to ask you 3 quick questions and let's see what your answers are. What keeps you motivated daily?
What keeps me motivated daily is structure. Like I literally have to structure myself because, I am a creative and creatives both resist and need structure. I have decided to take that role on for myself. And really, I live by my calendar. If it's not in my calendar, it's not getting done. I have regular activities of doing what I call a brain dump, of really exploring what the activities are and to-dos I have to get done and organizing and prioritizing. Maybe even almost a little bit anal of really tracking what I need to get done and what I wanted to get done, because otherwise I get excited by the squirrel moments of being an entrepreneur, of a really cool offer, an opportunity, just being in a creative flow and all of a sudden realizing, I've wasted the whole day. And so really dialing in every single morning, looking at what my plan of my day is, making sure I have time in my calendar to achieve the tasks I want to get done. Is it perfect every day? Absolutely not. But I would say creating structure is what keeps me motivated every single day.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a big fan of structure and it really kind of keeps me on track. Now, Chelsea, who do you look up to as a business leader?
So I actually work very closely with a business coach personally. Bob Heilig is someone who I've really partnered up with over the past year and a half. I'm a big believer that if you want to play big, you need to, have someone who has what you want and pushes you. So he has some amazing trainings, especially for home entrepreneurs or solopreneurs. So I really kind of sought out his guidance and have a pretty close relationship with his works now. And also, just do a lot of following of Tony Robbins and Jim Rohn and just some of the people who can add little drips and drabs into my day to spark my commitment and also my creativity.
Yeah. Now, I'm really interested in your answer to this next one. I kind of think I know how you're going to answer, but I'm not real sure. You have to pick one: street smarts versus book smarts. Which one are you going to choose?
I almost
You're going to choose street
smarts. You've got to, because as I look at it, I do not regret my legal education. I love everything that I learned. But what I really benefited from in, my college experience, which I actually was a psychology major and then went to law school, what I realized is I learned how to learn. The actual information that I learned in, Evidence 101, do I still remember it? No, but I did learn how to learn. But now it's more the application, because I could just sit and not use those skills. But what I realized is I can pull out of what I learned through the book smarts, but if I don't apply it, if I don't use that in my business, nothing happens. And so for me, I think it's more, the number one thing that I look at in an entrepreneur to designate their success in my mind is their level of grit. And grit doesn't get taught in school. It's more about having that stubborn commitment to making what you want to have happen. And if you have that grit, you'll learn what you're missing or bring someone into your team that has it. So I think maybe you assumed because I have a lot of student loan debt that it would have been book smarts. But for me, I think it's street smarts.
Hey, I'm with you with the student loan debt. Cheers to that. But no, yeah. Well, so Chelsea's saying burn the books. Get out there, burn the books, and just learn on the street. It sounds like that's what you're saying. Well, no, but seriously, Chelsea, you shared a very, interesting moment with you when you kind of had that aha moment that you were in the kind of doing the wrong thing and for the wrong reasons, and you made a big transition, and that was a very stressful time that kind of helped you. But since you've been working for yourself as an entrepreneur and doing your own thing, going down your own path, what kind of maybe stressful moments have you had as an entrepreneur that you've had to deal with?
Yeah, I mean, something that's challenging for me, especially with the professional background that I have, was embracing that you've got to be bad before you can be good and good before you can be great. So for me, it's less about a specific like, oh my God, rock bottom moment, as it has been the mental struggle of putting myself out there before I feel ready. And accepting that the first anything as an entrepreneur is not going to be perfect. And if you've waited and studied and like planned and feel like your first attempt at anything is perfect, you've waited too long. That has been my biggest struggle, just mentally, of being like, okay, I'm putting myself out there because, the world needs more bold people. And even if I flop, I just recently tried using some new technology to run a live Facebook feed and had built it up and got a bunch of people, enrolled and signed up. And then it looked horrible. The technology just didn't work the way I thought it would. And you've just got to be okay, or I've got to be okay with the fact that that's going to happen and nobody's going to remember. Nobody holds you to the first performance of something. And I think actually people like to see humanity and know that folks that they look up to in the business world aren't perfect, but that's an ongoing struggle for me every single day.
Well, it makes sense because you spent so many years in law school and preparing to be an attorney and studying for the bar exam and all that stuff that goes along. And then then you go into being an entrepreneur and working for yourself. And it's like, oh, okay, well, I didn't have all this prep time. And then you're kind of forced out there and you're like, okay, what am I doing? You kind of feel like you're just pushed up on stage, and taking the metaphor as being a dancer without really understanding all the dance steps and going, okay, perform now. Here you are. The world is watching. Do your thing. And so that has got to be, it's a difficult moment for a lot of people to be able to manage. It's like, okay, well, I just don't feel ready. And so what if someone comes to you and says, Chelsea, I don't know when the time is for me. When am I ready to be an entrepreneur? What would you say to them? And I know every person is different based on different circumstances, but in general, how would you answer that?
So I'm horrible at butchering quotes, so you may have to quote check this, but there's a quote that says that pain will push you until vision pulls you. And so the point at which you need to jump off the cliff and become an entrepreneur is when you finally have a vision clear enough and big enough of what your life could be like if you took the deliberate risk. If you just become an entrepreneur because you feel pain and you're reacting like, I hate my boss, I'm going to quit. That's not really the same as saying, I have a vision of what my life can be like, when I have a 6-figure income through coaching or whatever you want to launch. When you can really have a vision to pull you, I think, is when it's time to take the leap or to really ramp up your business. If you're still feeling like you're coming from a place of reacting or avoiding pain, you're never going to get the abundance mindset that you need to really see the bigger picture of what you can achieve.
Wow, I love that. Now, what would you say has been the most fulfilling moment since you've gone out on your own and started working for yourself?
Well, I have a pretty exciting moment that, part of my vision of doing any of this, of walking away and starting over, was that to marry my passion of travel with my everyday life, and have been working very hard, no overnight success here, to make sure that my career can be geographically flexible, so that I can connect with my work in all areas of my career and still be able to do that from anywhere. And finally, am at a place financially and success-wise and feeling really comfortable that was actually just able to book a 4-month stay in a beach house where I'll be staying with my partner for the winter coming up, because I live in Maine and I hate the winter. And I finally decided, you know what? Life's too short. I can work all of my businesses from a laptop, from a smartphone. And so that's been really exciting. Like seeing the vision of that coming true is almost surreal. It's not like, a huge milestone, maybe compared to what some people are achieving as entrepreneurs. But for me, it's more about creating the lifestyle that I want, spending time with people I want to be spending time with. When something happens in my family, if, my grandmother needs me, being able to say, yeah, sure, I got this. I'll reschedule my appointments, and not having to call into a boss and say, wow, do I have any time left over to go take care of my sick grandmother? Because that's the place where so many people live in. And for me and my personality, it just doesn't feel humane. So the flexibility, the geographic freedom, really being able to kind of spend the time where I want, with whom I want, that's really the pinnacle of where I'm trying to move towards today. So for me, I'm pretty humble, even when, hopefully in the higher echelons of all of the industries that I'm in. For me, it's not about material things. It's about experiencing the world and being able to take care of the people that I want to take care of.
Your story right there just, I'm sure, inspired so many listeners right now, because that's what a lot of people are looking for, that flexibility, that freedom, and just to be able to seize the moment, because we don't know how much time we have here on earth. And so why not go out and live the life that you want to? And what you just shared it's got to be very, very inspiring for so many people out there right now. And I really appreciate you sharing that. And that's wonderful that you were able to obtain that. And it gives other people hope that they too can go down that same path and have that freedom, that flexibility, and that financial security to be able to do that. That is wonderful. Well, Chelsea, unfortunately, we've come to the end of the show. But before we go, where can people find you online, your website and social media, all that great stuff?
Yeah, I'm everywhere. So probably the best place to head to is chelseafournier.com. And if any of your listeners have enjoyed the conversation that I have around clarifying your vision, I do have a free Clarify Your Vision worksheet right up on my website. So that would be a great place for folks to head to and get a free download and play around with that concept of figuring out what they want to have happen. And actually, it's a little bit of a Mad Libs to end up with an actual vision statement and some affirmations that you can use on a daily basis. So chelseafournier.com. I am super active on Facebook on my business page. You can find me as Chelsea Fournier online. And those are kind of the hubs of where most of my communication comes out. So if people can find me in those two places, they can find my emails, my contact forms on my website and whatnot. I'm more than happy to converse with any of your listeners that might want to dive a little bit deeper into what they heard today.
Well, that's excellent. And just to spell your name, it's CHELSCA, Chelsea Fournier, FOURNIER.com.
Absolutely.
And I'll have that in the show notes as well. Chelsea, thank you for your time. It's been so much fun talking to you, and I look forward to staying in touch.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Tim. You're doing an amazing job with the show. Honored to be a part of it.
Thank you.
Want more entrepreneurial tips? Go to timlaskus.com.